Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the 10 o'clock news on Q2, Montana's news leader.
Good evening and thanks for joining us on this Friday night. I'm Jay Kohn. Janelle has the night off. Campaigns in Montana can get expensive, but now some groups want to do away with limits on campaign spending. In fact, the U.S. Supreme Court now being asked to strike down Montana's campaign contribution limits for state races. Attorney James Bopp now asking the High Court to take this case and overrule a lower court ruling that upheld those spending limits late last year. Bopp's been involved in several cases that challenged limits on campaign spending, including Citizens United, the famous 2010 decision that led to unlimited corporate spending in campaigns. Montana limits how much individuals, political parties, and PACs can give to state candidates per election cycle. For example, a person or PAC can give up to $1,360 a year to any gubernatorial candidate. In his petition to the Supreme Court, Bopp claims that Montana's limits are an unconstitutional limit on free speech. He's representing a coalition of conservative, business, and Republican Party groups in Montana, the same groups that challenged those limits back in 2011. The U.S. Supreme Court accepts only about 2% of the requested appeals. Yesterday, MTN News examined the claims in a campaign ad from Democratic Senator Jon Tester on health care. Tonight, our chief political reporter Mike Dennison is here to evaluate the first campaign TV ad from Republican Congressman Greg Gianforte. He's up for re-election this year.
The issue of immigration hasn't exactly been a front-burner issue in the congressional contest between Gianforte and Democratic challenger Kathleen Williams. But that's the main subject in Gianforte's first TV ad, which attacks Williams. Here's part of it.
Now these radicals want to abolish ICE, the law enforcement agency that deports criminal illegal aliens. Kathleen Williams is their candidate for Congress.
ICE is Immigration and Customs Enforcement, an agency within the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. It's true that a Montana chapter of a group that wants to abolish ICE, Indivisible, is supporting Williams. But Williams herself has never called for abolishing ICE and says she supports the agency. The Gianforte ad continues with this claim.
So liberal, Williams would vote with Pelosi for open borders and amnesty.
Williams has said she would vote against Pelosi as Democratic leader for the U.S. House next year. And on immigration policy, Williams has not said anything to indicate that she is for open borders and amnesty. She says she supports securing U.S. borders and cracking down on drug and human trafficking. Williams supports a path to citizenship for so-called dreamers, young adults brought to the U.S. as children by immigrant parents. She also notes that the Republican majority in the House has been unable to pass an immigration reform bill and says she would work to bridge that partisan gap. The Gianforte ad closes with saying correctly that Williams supported the Iranian nuclear deal, which she said was working to prevent Iran from developing nuclear weapons. As for the rest of this ad's claims, let's just say they're a bit of a stretch. From Helena, Mike Dennison, MTN News.
Mike reminds us that also running in Montana's U.S. House race this year is Libertarian Eleanor Swanson of Billings. Montana Governor Steve Bullock in Iowa this week at the Iowa State Fair, where he's fueling more speculation that he might be considering a possible presidential run in 2 years. Cynthia Fodor tonight reports on this year's list of who's checking out the political landscape in Iowa.
They are back, flipping pork burgers, signing autographs, shaking hands. Former Secretary of Housing and Urban Development Julian Castro climbs up on the Des Moines Register soapbox stage.
We have to raise the minimum wage in this country. It's why we need universal health care in the United States.
A day earlier, Montana Governor Steve Bullock.
The ability to govern is fundamentally been eroded in the last 10 years.
Maryland Congressman John Delaney, the first to declare, has already hit all 99 counties.
There's no reason why the message of the Democratic Party, or at least the message we need going forward, doesn't sell in every district in this country.
California billionaire Tom Steyer pushed his purpose to impeach President Trump and possibly replace him.
The only way that this could conceivably work is if the American people decide it has to happen.
Senator Charles Grassley, munching on a pork belly, said mingling at the fair is a must.
Just being present at the state fair means that you're taking Iowa First in the Nation caucuses very seriously.
Do Iowans care at this point?
I think so. I mean, it lets all Iowans know that they matter and their vote matters.
We take in every word and stand in the heat of the sun to put the candidates in the hot seat.
What are the issues that you're most interested in?
Well, being an Iowan, obviously farming. I know they feel kind of slighted now with the tariff wars that are kind of going on.
We've been instrumental in getting a number of presidents started. So I'm glad they're here.
Most of those who are testing the waters in Iowa say they're going to wait until after this fall's midterm elections to decide their future political plans. Many of the well-known names considering presidential runs, Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, and Joe Biden, they are not in attendance at the fair this year. President Trump apparently going to have to wait a bit longer for his military parade. After observing this Bastille Day parade in Paris last year, the president said he wanted something similar for the United States. The administration decided that Veterans Day weekend in November might be a good match, but this week the Pentagon announced it's postponing the parade until perhaps sometime next year. It didn't offer a reason, but it could be due to the cost of putting on such an event. The latest estimate on the cost of putting on such a parade, close to $100 million, which critics say is way too much. On to our weather scene tonight. Chief Forecaster Bob McGuire joining us with news of a cool down headed our way, even bringing some rain, Bob.
Yeah, and it's not far away. Let me show it to you on the Doppler radar. Well, that's not it. That's not it either. It's over here somewhere. I cannot find it. There we go. Here we go. There's the radar. It's coming up right there. There's the rain moving in. Oh, my goodness. So you can see the showers are getting really close to Montana. Right now they're in Stillwater County, get very close to Yellowstone County right now. So I think it's just a matter of maybe in an hour or so, we'll start to see some light rain make its way into the Billings area. As you'll see here, because of the showers moving in, we actually had a red flag warning expecting dry thunderstorms and high winds across much of western Montana. That could cause some erratic fire behavior and maybe some new fire starts. And so that's been an issue as well. But take a look at the smoke plumes across the rest of the west. It's getting from California into Montana. We're getting Montana fires as well, and smoke even from British Columbia. It's all making its way all the way across the country. So it's really smoky out there, but that cold front could actually help push some of that smoke away in the next day or so. We'll have more on that in a few more minutes. Jay?
All right, thank you, Bob. Bit of a preview of Bob's main forecast coming up later in the show. A Colorado father suspected of killing his pregnant wife and 2 young daughters remains in custody tonight. Formal charges expected to be filed against him next week. The latest on this story now from Chris Martinez.
Mourners and relatives left flowers and stuffed animals outside the Colorado home Chris Watts once shared with his family.
You don't know someone at all until you find out that they have done something so evil.
Mr. Watts, why did you kill your wife and 2 children?
Watts was arrested Thursday on suspicion of killing his pregnant wife Shanann and their 2 young daughters, 3-year-old Celeste and 4-year-old Bella. Their bodies were found that day inside storage tanks filled with crude oil on the property of one of his work sites.
The hardest part about it all is when you're closer with the family, it's the why.
Family friend Jeremy Lindstrom is still struggling to make sense of the tragedy.
We're dumbfounded. We don't get it. Lost.
The couple had experienced financial troubles in recent years, racking up tens of thousands of dollars in debt and filing for bankruptcy.
It's like a nightmare that I just can't wake up from.
When his wife and daughters disappeared earlier in the week, Watts went on TV claiming to have no idea where they were.
It's not something I could ever fathom would happen in my lifetime.
For reasons still unknown, lawyers for the 33-year-old have asked for DNA samples to be taken from the children's remains. First-degree murder charges are expected to be filed against Watts on Monday. Chris Martinez, CBS News.
Watts is also expected to face 3 counts of tampering with evidence. Investigators have yet to reveal a possible motive. Zoo Montana hosting its last big event of the summer at a venue that's becoming known as a good place for live music. The Tanglewood Band played its mix of country and rock tonight, starting off the entertainment part of Beef and Brews at the Zoo. This event actually started 4 years ago as a qualifier for the World Food Championships Burger Contest. This year, local food trucks and brewers parked on the zoo grounds for the annual fundraiser. The event used to be known as Zoofari.
We felt that Zufari didn't actually put across to folks what it really was, what the event was, and so we really wanted people to know it was a place to, eat and have some fun and have some beer. Billings has a good music scene. They have a good brewery scene, as we all know. We're just tapping into that. What we're finding is that Zoo Montana is turning into a great outdoor concert venue. We want it to be a relaxing evening, just a great opportunity to get off work, come on in here and enjoy the night.
Good attendance tonight. The 7th Avenue Band finished off the music out at Zoo Montana this evening. Still ahead on tonight's 10 o'clock news, Glacier Park may have been hit by some pitfalls this summer, but you know what? There are still parts of Glacier that's open for business. Plus, Ben Steele continues to hold a special place in Billings history. Now, part of that is hanging inside the middle school named in his honor. And later in sports, we catch up with former LPGA Tour pro Leslie Spalding as she enters her 8th year as the women's golf coach at San Diego State.
You're watching MTN News with Jay Kohn and Janelle Slade. Storm Tracker weather with Bob McGuire and sports with Scott Green. This is the 10 o'clock news on Q2, Montana's news leader.